The next subject that we're going to talk about is transitions when you don't have a sling, where it kind of stemmed from, why we did what we did back in the day, and how it can apply to you now, depending upon your circumstances. I'm going to break slings down into kind of two categories. 2-point and single point, more of a tactical use sling that allows you to still climb, still throw it behind your back, also allows you to speed reload, tack reload, clear malfunctions, and also allows you to transition. And then in my opinion, the other style of sling is what I would refer to as a carry sling, where it mounts from the bottom of the stock here, goes all the way up to the bottom of the barrel here. That to me is a carry sling, and a carry sling doesn't generally allow the same functionality as a 2-point or a single point sling does. A couple things to remember. Back then, generally, 2 points weren't really out on the market like they are now. And even if we were to say, well, technically it connects to the front to the back, the placement of where we would do that wasn't available to us like it is now. Single points generally really weren't out on the market in a lot of great use. So what a lot of guys would do, and what you would see most commonly, is the sling would be mounted up front all the way to the rear, and it would be pulled really tight so it's not loose, so it's not going to get snagged on anything. And generally the only time you saw somebody utilizing a sling was, again, when it was slung behind their back or stowed. However, when we start getting into transitions, that sling setup does not transition well, which is why nobody's using it for that. Does it have a purpose? It does, but generally not for that tactical use. So where does that leave us technique-wise? Or where does that leave you in the event that you don't even have a sling? Because you may not have a sling mounted on all your guns, and or you may have your sling wrapped up and stowed when something happens. So we're going to cover some traditional techniques that are still really good, and I think can bring you some merit in the event you find yourself in a little bit of a predicament. The other thought process is, well, why don't I just dump the gun? Well, one, I don't really necessarily want to leave a firearm out on the ground somewhere in a city or a Walmart parking lot. The other consideration to think is, maybe I still have more ammo on my gun. So I don't want to get rid of it. I just have to do a quick transition. And as soon as I'm seen safe, then I'm immediately going to get this primary back up and rolling again. So these are some reasons why we're not just dumping the gun on the ground and just leaving it. Let's look at the two methods that were taught. First method, muzzle down and bring it in close to the body so that it's nice and tight. And also it helps you manage the weight of the gun a lot better. Then I would draw my secondary, come up on target. I would do my engagement. And then from there, I'm going to try to get my primary up and running as quickly as I can. That is one method. The second method, I prefer this one over the first, and the reason being is I like how much real estate the gun covers right here, and it's a muzzle up configuration. Draw my secondary again, come out on target, shoot, and then from here I'll start to reload this and get it back up. Now for me, this method right here covers a lot more of my body center mass. I generally use my fingers right here to index on the jawline. I do need to be careful where the barrel is, and you can see the angle. If I'm running a suppressor and I just got done shooting this thing, you need to be careful as well. So there's two general techniques: muzzle up, muzzle down. Pros and cons with this technique. The first thing that I don't like about it, of course, is that I have to shoot my handgun one-handed. And I know that if I can put two hands on my handgun, I'm not only more accurate, but I'm also faster. I can manage recoil. I can drive the gun from target to target a lot quicker. However, if I were to utilize this technique, I would hope that it was definitely for a quick engagement that was probably really close and easy to solve. But we also have to remember back in a time, and this is going to be hard for a lot of the younger crowd, where plates weren't around, and we also didn't even have body armor. So there was no soft Kevlar whatsoever. So affording yourself a little bit of protection, whether you muzzle down or whether you muzzle up, is a really big deal. Now let's bring it into current times. How many civilians run around wearing Kevlar? Most don't. So you could have a sling on your gun, a 2-point or a single point, and you could utilize this to cover your ass just a little bit. So just because it's older in nature, and just because it was a time before body armor and the way slings were, doesn't mean that you have to utilize it or it's stuck in that category. You can utilize that technique to benefit you. Just remember this, when something bad happens, you just need to have an answer. And all we're doing is creating that NFL playbook for you to decide what works best for your lifestyle. One of the reasons why I still like teaching this technique is because depending upon what you're doing, law enforcement wise, sometimes it guns down on a floorboard because you're watching something, narcotics guys, SWAT guys, whatever it is. And if you're a civilian, you may have your gun in a bag, but I like everything attached to the gun and I don't want anything loose. That way, if I have to move or pull something out, I don't want the loop of the sling getting snagged on things. So what I do is I just take mine and I rubber band it. So if I get into an engagement, I may or may not have time to grab this sling really quickly and get it around my neck. Generally, in most altercations, you probably do. However, I go on worst case scenario, which is I just grab the gun and I start shooting it. Well, of course, if it goes to bolt lock or I have a malfunction, that's where these other techniques come into play until I can get my sling into a more beneficial position to allow me that transition that I need to do. This is just one way in order to do it, and it's a pretty simple way. The other is by a company called Condition Gray. And one of the things is that this Velcro mounts up forward. So it allows you to stow this up forward. Now, what I will tell you is this holds on to it better. Pro and con, it holds on to it better. So it's gonna be something where you're just gonna have to get in there at the right spot, grab the Velcro release, and then open it up, and then your sling's gonna unfold the way you need to. I've always kind of fancied the rubber band because worst case is I can override the rubber band and break it. So again, there are a lot of different things that are out on the market. You can go as simple as a rubber band, or you can get something that holds it a little bit cleaner. Muzzle down. Muzzle up.